Hello, my amazing Algebra Half students. This is Mrs. A, and I love math. Tonight we're doing lesson 79, and it's all about implied ratios. Now we know that a ratio is a comparison between two numbers, and we know that a proportion sets two ratios equal to each other, like this. Okay, so here we have an equation that is also a proportion. It's an equation because it has an equal sign, and it's a proportion because it's two ratios set equal to each other. And we can tell that the proportion is a true proportion because when we cross multiply, we get 3 times 12 is 36, and 4 times 9 is 36. So now we're going to talk about implied ratios. And implied ratios are simply ratios that you have to discern from a problem that doesn't actually say the word ratio. So let me give you an example. So here I'm going to read the very first example in the book. It took 2.5 eggs to make 140 cookies. Jenny wanted to make 1,680 cookies. Now, why would she want to do that? That's a lot of cookies. How many eggs did she need? Okay, so it took 2.5 eggs to make 140 cookies, and she wants to make 1,680 cookies. How many eggs did she need? So this is an implied ratio because you notice they never ever said the word ratio in the whole problem. So here we go. I've written this implied ratio on the board. It took 2.5 eggs to make 140 cookies. Okay, and then I have a question mark. How many eggs is it going to take to make 1,680 cookies? Okay, so we could make, instead of a question mark, we could make this N or X, whatever we wanted to make it, but we are asking a question there. That is an unknown there. How many eggs? So that's why I just put a question mark. So we'll just keep the question mark. It's okay. It could be an N. All right, so now we have a proportion. We also have an equation. And 2.5 eggs is to 140 cookies, as some number of eggs that we have to discover is to 1,680 cookies. Okay, so it didn't say how long it was going to take her to bake those many cookies. So now we're going to multiply this way. We're going to multiply this way. We're going to cross multiply. I am going to go ahead and make this an N because I want a variable. Okay, so now we got 2.5 times, oops, that was supposed to be a 2, 1,680 must equal N times 140. Okay, so there's what we're going to have to do. Now, anytime I do a problem like this, I'm going to look for, is there a shortcut? Okay, so when I look at this, I'm going to say, well, I don't want my numbers to get bigger and bigger and bigger. I want them to get smaller and smaller and smaller. So I think what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to take the 140 and I'm going to take the 1,680 and I'm just going to lop off a 0 on both sides. So I divided both sides by 10 and I'm trying to get the N by itself. So to get the N by itself, wouldn't I divide both sides by 14 and 14? Okay, so now I've got N equals all of that. 2.5 times 1,680, or 8, I already took off the 0, divided by 14. So I'm going to hold that there so you can get that down, and then we're going to come and work that on another paper. Okay, so here I've written my problem after we had simplified it with those zeros coming off. And now I'm going to see, does 14, I'm going to divide first because if I multiply 2.5 times 168, I just get a bigger number. What if I divide first? I can. So I'm going to divide 14 into 16 is 1 times 14, and then I get a 28, which is going to be exactly 2 times. So I wind up with 12. So this divided by this is exactly 12. And 2.5 times 12 is much easier than 2.5 times 168. So I can take this and say 2 times 12 is 24. Plus a half times 12 is 6. And 24 plus 6 is 30. 30 eggs for 1,680 cookies. Okay, so now I'm going to read the second problem. It takes 3 tons of fertilizer to fertilize 170 acres. Farmer Brown wants to fertilize 1,870 acres. How many tons of fertilizer does he need? See, they never say ratio. So that's what we mean by an implied ratio. But they did tell us enough for us to set up a ratio and a proportion. So we have 3 tons is to 170 acres. So 3 tons of fertilizer, 170 acres. And how many tons would it take to do 1,870 acres? Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little question mark and I'm going to make this N for the number of tons of fertilizer. And so now I'm going to cross multiply and I'm going to get, I'm going to take off the T because that just stands for tons. So we'll take that off, just like we're going to take off the acres. But we always want to make sure that we have tons with tons and acres with acres. So now I don't need to have to worry about the acres anymore. It's in the right place. So now I'm going to cross multiply. 3 times 1,870 is N times 170. So now I want to get rid of the 170 because I want just my N. So I divide by 170 on both sides. And now, wouldn't you agree that this side is just N? So we'll take away the 170. We'll take away that. So we have N is equal to that. All right. So when I do this, I know that 3 does not go into 170. Now, how do I know that right off the bat? Because when I add up the digits, if the digits add up to a multiple of 3, then 3 is a divisor. And 1 plus 7 plus 0 does not add up to a multiple of 3. It adds up to 8. 8 is not a multiple of 3. Therefore, 3 will not go into 170. But remember, I'm going to take off the 0 and the 0. Will 17 divide into 187? Well, I think it will. Let's try it. 187 divided by 17 is going to go 117 with a 7 left over. 17, so 11 times. So we can cancel this and this with an 11. 3 times 11 is 33 tons of fertilizer. That's a lot of fertilizer. The last one is your practice. One practice problem. The baker found that it took 4 huge measures of sugar to make 13 confections. The baker needed to make 143 confections. How many huge measures of sugar were needed? Okay, did you hear the implied ratio? Okay, it said that we had 4 huge measures of sugar that goes with 13 confections. But the baker wants to make 143 confections. How many huge measures of sugar will he need? Okay, so right now, after we got all of those huge measures of sugar, measures of sugar, confection, now I'm going to take those away. Okay, I've already fixed them in the right place. I use those to get everything in the right place. Okay, so I'm looking for, hold on, 143. Okay, so now I'm going to cross multiply. And I'm going to make this an N. Okay, so now we got 4 times 143 is 13 times n. But I don't want 13n, I just want n. So we're going to divide by 13. We're going to divide by 13. And now we just have n equals this. Once again, will 13 go into 143 evenly? If I divide 13 into 14, I get 1. And then I get 1 left over. And 13 into 13, 1. It's 11 again. So 143 and 13 cancel with an 11. 11 times 4 is 44. And you need 44 huge measures of sugar to make 143 confections. And that's all there is to lesson 79. That was kind of fun and easy, wasn't it? I hope you enjoy looking at your implied ratios and figuring out your word problems by yourself. This is Mrs. A, and may God bless your day.